Good morning, Professor Evans and everyone else. Today I'm going to be discussing my research paper, and I'll start off by going over my one pager overview. So I'm going to be talking about Proposition 227 from California that passed in 1998. Um, to me, it was a research paper that hit at home because I am a product of a bilingual education environment. I grew up in Lomita Village and I went to school at Audubon Elementary, a school that is predominantly Hispanic and Latino, and majority of the students there were bilingual. I can recall when I was in school at the time that progression from Spanish to English was smooth, and I believe that Proposition 227 definitely took a step backwards. Um, Luckily for me, however, I was already in third grade when this passed, so when it came to the law, I was already, I believe, halfway through it. So I was predominantly speaking English in the class already, so it was more about like 70% English, 30% Spanish. So I didn't feel the effects of it, but students prior to me entering into the system did have those negative effects. I did find plenty of data from both sides. I found a lot of arguments for the implementation of English immersion through Prop 227, primarily that the fact that the main goal was to get the standardized test scores up, and that showed proof that the immersion program would work. However, there has been also arguments on the side of opposition claiming that English immersion is not the way to go and is not the long-term solution. Um, with No Child Left Behind hitting in the early 2000s, however, um, the achievements of trying to go for high stakes testing definitely impacted English immersion, since English immersion showed that it was effective due to high test scores. So now we'll go into my actual research paper itself. So I start off by starting off with the ending, excuse me, by the ending, showing that Prop 58, which repealed Prop 227, basically effectively ending Proposition 7's practice of English immersion only. Now, Silicon Valley tech giant Ron Unz was the mastermind behind Prop 227, claiming that students in California, but also in the United States, need to learn English, and the only way for them to learn English is by being in an English-only environment. However, for many decades, bilingual education has always been the true form of being able to do such thing, and that is teaching them English by first mastering their native languages skills. That includes reading, writing, mathematics, etc. I can take home to that because I can recall from my experience in elementary school that I first learned how to read and write in Spanish and learn math and learn all the other topics that way. And transitioning over to English was a much smoother transition. So from here on, my essay begins at the beginning of in the early 90s, mid 90s to the late. I start by saying that even though Ron Unz was not able to become the governor of California, he still wanted to be in the political limelight by having Proposition 227 be on the ballot for the 1998 elections. It was a victory for him and his supporters because due to the fact that there was this growing notion that more and more people were noticing more and more Spanish being talked about in their stores, in their shops, in the local areas. So this fear of Spanish becoming taken over definitely wasn't impactful, was as impactful in the winning of Prop 227 in the long run. Now, one of the biggest opponents of Prop 227 was a lot of the California teacher associations and unions. For one of the obvious reasons is because that means that they're going to have to be in their classes a lot more differently, meaning that the curriculum is going to have to change. But most importantly of all is they know what the students' needs are and how they need to be taught, as well as the ultimate fear that they're going to lose their job because no longer are these bilingual teachers going to be required to be in a class, because now they're going to be taught only in English. The controversy went up as high as to the Lincoln administration during the time. So even they were opposed to Prop 227. As stated before, Prop 227 passed with 61 majority vote, effectively almost ending bilingual education. Now, bilingual education did not get fully cut. However, parents needed to write a waiver. Now, once again, with this whole Hispanic phobia in play, not that many parents of these students would come forth and sign these waivers. One reason was because of the fact that they were not able to understand or read and write in English. Another effect also is that a lot of these parents were also illegal immigrants. So, of course, the exposure of them being out and about was also a factor as well. There was also a lot of components added into Prop 227 that really weren't as easy to understand. And for that reason, a lot of teachers did not like it as well, especially administrators. However, a lot of administrators did have a lot of leeway in considering what they can and cannot do in terms of what is considered English only. So many districts were having a rough time. There was a victory, a silver lining for UNCE, however, when after several years, standardized testing scores have doubled for those students who were once in bilingual classes who are now in English classes. So for him, if the test scores doubled, then they're doing pretty good. However, there are still many professors and teachers in the state of California who thought that this was not the correct way to do it. With the wins that UNCE and his supporters were getting, then they would spread also across to other states as well. The state of Arizona and the state of Massachusetts also passed English-only immersion classes, effectively killing bilingual education as well. However, in 2006, or 2014 actually, legislators placed Proposition 58 on the 2016 election cycle. The main focus of the proposition was to effectively end the restrictions on bilingual education imposed by Prop 227. Then finally, in 2016, Prop 58 was passed, but the long effects of Prop 227 were still being affected even to this day. There is still a shortage of teachers for the bilingual education, and credentialing in bilingual education has dropped steadily as well. And even if his ultimate goal was to set back bilingual education with Prop 227, he effectively caused a lot more damage. And finally, here are my sources as well. Majority of them were polling sites as well as newspapers, and the article or the main book that I read was Bilingual Education in the 21st Century. Thank you.